Alrighty, so here's a little bit more of the engine done. Put some cylinders on, but I also put that little doodad on, which was made from several pieces of paper, and then that cone and a couple of cylinders, or flat pieces, I'm sorry, that went in, and then I put in that shaft. That's the part that's going to be attached to the, um, oh yeah, and those are the cylinders I put on so far. That's the part that'll be attached to the crank to turn the engine on right there. So that's attached, by the way, with super glue, just like the shaft on the other side is. What we're going to work on now is what I'm circling, which is the cylinder. So here are the parts of the cylinders, the basic parts of cylinders. The only thing that I did beforehand was this piece is actually, a strip that rolls around two pieces, a top and a bottom circle. So that is like a little hockey puck that I made before. But here's the cylinder, and the first thing I did was curl it. So I used my pinky as a backing, rolled with thin piano wire, and roll it, roll it, roll it. And as you roll it, of course, it rolls up into a little curl. And actually, this one I should have done a little bit more. I should have had a little bit more of a curl on the one end. I only got it on one end, not both. But add a little glue, and then I took my little tweezers and tried to hold them together, get them into the right place. And if they're if they're over rolled, then putting them together is easy because it basically flops into place. In my case, they weren't quite over rolled, so I had to kind of hold them in place, but it worked. Not the end of the world. But when you do yours, roll them so that they are overlapped when they relax. Then they'll come together in the seam very nicely. So then I put some glue on the little top piece, and there's an angle on that top piece. I think you can notice it. So the top cylinder top actually has a piece of that's bent on it, bent down. Maybe you can see it a little bit on there, that part there where the exhaust is going to go. And so it's easy to know which way to put this, is my point. You can't put it the other way. It has a certain shape to it. And so you squish it down. And in this case, I forgot, you can see all those white edges, I forgot to color the top piece. But, that's not a big problem. Um, yeah, I just point out that, hey, look, I forgot to do those. But usually I do them before, but I forgot this time. So all you do is you take your Sharpie or whatever marker you have that's of the appropriate color, and you just go ahead and color it in. No harm done. All the way around. And then you have a nice clean look without paper edge. And there's my little, then there's a little base piece that goes on the back side. So I put glue on there. Oops, that's the wrong way, dummy. Turn it over. There it goes. Put that in there, and that's going to give you a place to attach the cylinder top part to the little hockey puck, which goes underneath it. There's the hockey puck. And again, that's made of three pieces, a middle piece, a top piece, and a bottom piece, right there. And it's easy to put together, that's why I didn't show it. So then I add a little glue to that piece. I just dip it into a puddle of the white glue that I have over there. Don't put too much on. And then attach this. And I make sure that, by convention, kind of, the seam on the cylinder lines up with the seam on the hockey puck that goes around. That's actually kind of a strange thing about this kit. I think they put the seam in such a way that it would go forward and back because you wouldn't see it, front to back. But I think that would make the top part difficult. But anyway, it still looks, it'll be kind of invisible, I hope. But there's 5 of my cylinders on. There they are. Looks good. So now I just put the last one on that you saw me sort of install. Now what I get to do is put that on and make sure they're all level. Now I'm eyeballing this, and I'm noticing that that one is tall. It's too high. So what do? As long as it's dry, you can actually sand it just like you'd sand a piece of wood. And so this is just me taking some kind of heavy grit sandpaper and just sanding the hockey puck a little bit. And a little bit goes a long way. You take it and you test it. But you can see I'm sanding quite a bit here. That's why I sped it up. But then I test it, and it wasn't quite there. A little bit more. And now it actually looks Ooh, I need a little bit more. Now it looks pretty good after this. So at that point, I can go ahead and add my glue to the bottom and then attach the last cylinder in place. And all you do is put it there and make sure again that it's vertical, that it's not leaning into the others. The hard part about this, putting on these cylinders in individually, and in a plastic model, there's sockets to put these things in, but in this there's not. So everything has to be level, and so you have to eyeball it and make sure it looks good, because it's really easy for the eye to notice when something's out of whack. This is not perfect by any means, but it's pretty dang close. So I'm checking it on the side, I'm checking it down the length of it to make sure all the cylinders are in line so you don't have any sort of leaning little soldiers. And then I also eyeballed on the top to make sure all those little dots that are on there look like they're straight and in the same sort of orientation, because that's where springs and exhausts and things are going to go on next. Looks pretty cool. It's starting to look like an engine now. So those places right there are little exhausts. And there's a part that you're supposed to use, which is paper, but I used stretched sprue because I tried rolling the paper and it delaminated, and I thought I'm just going to use plastic sprue, which is what I did, which is cheating, but that way it goes on easy, and then all I have to do is paint those like what you think a exhaust color would be, like a brownish silver or whatever, and then and paint a little black on the tip, and then it looks like a hole, and it will look just fine. The paper sleeve, around little cup piece without the ends on would actually look best, because there's a hole. It would look very scale-like, but I could not make those little tiny things work. So I acquiesced and cheated, but there they are, and you can see they're all in line. They are supposed to come out at that angle. Looks good. So there's all my exhaust on the engine now. Looks great. So now those little dots there's 2 of them per top cylinder. That is where this piece goes. Right there, 15 or E15F. What that's approximating is a valve spring attached to the rocker arms and to the push rod ultimately. So I decided, instead of using a piece of wire, I'd actually make valve springs. It's not as hard as it sounds. Take a piece of wire from an old electronic device and a piece of piano wire that's about the right thickness. Tease out one of these and just pull it, and it comes out all as one very easily. Well, kind of easily. So I pull this out, and now I've got this long, thin wire. And now it's just a matter of starting it on this piano wire, holding it on one piece, and wrapping it. And in this example, I don't wrap it as tightly as I should. In other words, I should have had the circles or the little rolls be really tight, pretty dang close to each other. But I was just trying to show the idea. So you wrap this thing up all the way to the end, and then you kind of squinch it together like that, and then pull it off the end. And what you have is a length of this very thin wire that looks every bit like a spring, and it's very easy to cut because it's very thin. You can cut it with a little X-Acto blade. So what I did was I lined up the pieces to the piece. You can see there's E15F. The length is right there. It's a little tiny thing. But I tried to make them all about the same, but you literally can take this, line it up, and then hold it with your fingers and very carefully cut it. When you cut it, make sure you hold kind of both ends, or at least put something around it, because they twang all over the place. You'd be surprised how many are on the floor. But there's 12 or 13 of them in there, all ready to go. My wife gave me that little container from some kind of sewing accoutrement, and that's really, really helpful. Thanks, honey. So those are going to go on each of those little dots. And that's, kind of trying. It's not easy. It's especially hard to manipulate those little things, hold them with the tweezers. But you just got to do it real carefully. So I put a couple on. I'll show you what I do. Take my wire with a little super glue. I add it to a little circle there. It's already, you can see where it is. It's a nice little indentation, or not indentation, but it's a nice, it gives you exactly where it's supposed to go. And here the delicate part is picking up the dang springs and not dropping them like I did there. Very easy to drop these things. But when you got it right, You just pop it on there where the super glue is, and it'll stick. And then you gotta let it dry. And as it's drying, or maybe let it dry completely, then you got to do the same thing. Make sure in these cases these things are supposed to be vertical, and make sure they're in line. And I kind of push down on them to squish them so that they look like this. They look like even springs, because when you make these little guys this way with the wire, sometimes they come out kind of diagonal, like a curly fry from Arby's. So you want to sort of squish them so that they're actually flat and look more like springs. But they look very convincing. I like them. They're not hard to make, just a little tedious, but no more than anything else. So here it is with all those little guys on. They'll be painted some steelish looking color, or maybe even black. Probably black with some silver highlight, because I want people to see them, because you worked so hard to put them in. But there it is. I think it looks fantastic.